Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're making mac and cheese, but not just any mac and cheese. I'm trying to replicate this one dish from a restaurant that my partner and I used to go to all the time before they closed, called DuMont. They still have DuMont burger, or I think they still serve this. To start this dish, we need 1 pound of dry pasta. I am using Radiatore, but use whatever textured pasta you have in your pantry. You want something for your cheese sauce to be able to stick to. We're going to cook this on the stove for 2 minutes less than the package recommends. Now, DuMont uses pancetta, which I didn't have, but I did have this gorgeous hardwood smoked bacon. I have a half-pound slab, so we're just going to chop this up into thin strips and then chop those strips up into a nice even dice. Once that's all diced up, pop that in a pan and cook that over the stove. While that's cooking, we can prep our cream sauce. So for our cream sauce, we have 2 cups of whole milk and 2.5 cups of heavy cream. This is a very decadent dish. We're going to bring this over to the stove and just bring it to a low simmer and keep it warm. For our cheeses, I have a half pound of extra sharp cheddar and a half pound of gruyere. And yes, my cheddar is in slices. I was shocked when I realized my grocery store was out of blocks of cheddar cheese. Crazy, but I guess because people are entertaining or getting together, who knows? I digress. We're going to chop this up into thin strips and then into a small fine dice because we want this to be able to melt evenly when we add it to our cream sauce. Once it's all diced up, we're going to separate this into 2 portions. A 1/4 cup is going to go into one bowl for our cheese sauce, and that other 1/4 cup is going to go into a separate bowl for our topping. Now, thankfully, the gruyere was in a block. We're just going to chop up the rinds, but save those for soups. They add such a beautiful flavor to your stock. And then over the smallest piece of parchment you can find, this was actually the tail end of my parchment roll. We're going to grate this on the largest holes of our box grater, being careful not to grate our knuckles or our fingers. While the cheddar is going to bring a nuttiness and a sharpness, the gruyere is going to bring a beautiful creaminess and butteriness to this mac and cheese. And once that's all grated up, we're going to reserve a 1/4 cup for our cheese filling and a 1/4 cup for our topping. I'm just eyeballing this. Now at this point, our pasta should be cooked, so we are going to drain that, tip that into a bowl, and then drizzle this with 2 tablespoons of olive oil. This will just prevent it from clumping together as it cools. Our bacon should also be ready at this point, so we need to drain off the fat. I'm making quite a mess here. I also reserve all of my fat because I cook with it. My dogs were absolutely thrilled because little nuggets of goodness were dropping down from heaven. Once that's drained, pop that in a bowl and set that aside. Now we need 1 stick of unsalted butter for this dish, but instead of throwing away the wrapper, I'm going to use it to butter my 9x13 baking dish. This is a great little kitchen hack. You're utilizing what you have. You're not wasting a paper towel. And you're just going to throw away that butter wrapper to begin with. I like to put my baking dish over a baking sheet just in case anything spills or leaks during the cooking process. Now over medium heat, we're going to melt that 1 stick of butter. You should be preheating your oven to 400 degrees at this time as well. Once that butter is thoroughly melted, we're going to sprinkle in 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour, and we're going to whisk this and cook this roux for 4 minutes until that raw taste is been cooked out of the flour and becomes a beautiful golden color. After 4 minutes, we're going to start ladling in our hot milk and cream. I'm doing this in batches because I want that first 2 ladlefuls to get incorporated in fully to create this beautiful, creamy, lump-free bechamel sauce. So just be patient during this process, and once you've added in about half of the cream and whisk this together thoroughly, go ahead and tip in the rest. And you're going to notice this bechamel start to thicken up as you whisk it. We're going to season with 1/8 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Give that a little stir, and you can see this is getting thicker. And then we are going to season with 2 teaspoons of freshly ground black pepper, which I think is the most underrated seasoning in your kitchen arsenal. It adds like a subtle heat and beautiful depth of flavor to all your dishes. Then we're going to go in with 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. I don't want to be heavy-handed with salt because the bacon is salty, the cheese is salty. Now we're going to turn this bechamel into mornay by adding cheese. So just add in a little handful at a time. Let that first little batch have its moment until it gets into a beautiful, melty, cheesy situation in your pan before you add in the second batch of cheese. This is getting super melty and cheesy and beautiful. Once that last batch of cheese is in and it's thoroughly melted, at this point you can turn off the heat. Now we're going to give one final taste for seasoning, and you can add more salt, more pepper, whatever you think this needs at this point. Now let's move on to assembly. We're going to tip in all of our pasta into our baking dish. Mine did clump up a little because filming takes a little longer than actual real-time cooking, so I'm just breaking that apart with my spatula. Then we're going to go in with our bacon or pancetta, whatever you're using, and dot this evenly, or as evenly as possible, around our pasta. You want a bite of bacon in every spoonful. If you're a vegetarian, you can leave the meat out. This is still going to taste delicious. Now we get to pour over our gorgeous, silky, cheesy, beautiful cheese sauce. And I'm making sure to cover every square inch of our pasta. I'm going to go in with a spatula and scrape out every last bit of that because I don't want any of it to go to waste. I have 1 cup of panko breadcrumbs here. I didn't toast them. These are crunchy enough. And I didn't put butter in them. I'm going to sprinkle half of this all over the surface area of our mac and cheese. And then we're going to sprinkle on all of our reserved cheese that we set aside for our topping. This is going to melt into the breadcrumbs and form this amazing crust on top of our mac and cheese. If you don't have panko, you can use regular unseasoned breadcrumbs, but I do recommend toasting those. I like panko because it's just crunchier and, I don't know, a little bit more satisfying to me. Once all the cheese is on, we can sprinkle on the rest of the panko on top of that. Now we're ready to pop this into the oven, and we're going to cook this uncovered on the middle rack for 25 minutes. After 25 minutes, we need to take this out, and as much as we'd like to eat it right away, we have to let it cool for at least 5 minutes. Take a look at that. Oh my goodness, the bubbles. Oh, okay, to plate. I have my favorite bowl. I'm just scooping out a healthy portion. This is perfect as a side dish, as a main dish. This would be great for Thanksgiving because Lord knows we don't have enough carbs already in our Thanksgiving meal. But let's give this a taste. It's still beautiful and hot and steamy. Because we cooked the pasta 2 minutes less than the package directions said so, it's not mushy. The cheese sauce is creamy. You get the nuttiness and the sharpness from the cheddar. You get that butteriness from the gruyere and these little pops of meatiness from that bacon. The crust from the cheese and the panko. Really, I mean, there are not enough words to tell you how good this is, and it does taste like the DuMont mac and cheese. But there it is, my version of DuMont mac and cheese. I hope you guys try to make this. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you loved it, subscribe and hit that notification bell because I put out new videos every Thursday. Thank you again, and until next time, happy cooking. The reality of filming a cooking show in a very, very small Brooklyn kitchen. Time to do the dishes.